this city represents the whole world under judgment. This our city will be burnt with fire from heaven, in which fearful overthrow both myself, with you my wife, and you my sweet babies, shall miserably come to ruin. So he saw that the whole family was lost. Except the which yet I see not, unless there's found a way out, and I haven't seen it yet, except some way of escape can be found whereby we may be delivered. Now, this is typical of an awakened sinner. What is he looking for? Is he looking for a way of life or a way of escape?
Way out.
Way of escape.
Right.
He's not thinking at all. He doesn't know anything about the glory dimensions of the gospel. He's only thinking a way out of hell. Now that's typical of conviction. When a person is really convicted, he only thinks, how do I get out of this fire? How do I get out of this agony? How do I get this burden off me? And the word he uses is the biblical word, whereby we may be delivered. So he's looking for a way out. And he's going to find out when he finds a way out that he's found a way in. At this, his relations were sore amazed. Now, this is a natural man's response to a convicted sinner. They're amazed. They say, what's got into him? Not for that they believed that what he had said to them was true. In other words, they weren't amazed because they believed what he was saying was true, but because they thought that some frenzied distemper had got into his head. They thought he was crazy. Therefore, it drawing towards night, and they hoping that sleep might settle his brains, with all haste they got him off to bed. But the night was as troublesome to him as the day. In fact, I venture to say the night was more troublesome. When you're in agony, nights never seem to end. Wherefore, instead of sleeping, he spent it in sighs and tears. So when the morning had come, they would know how he did. So they went to see him and to inquire how he was doing. After the night of rest, he told them it only got worse. He told them worse and worse. He also set to talking to them again. Now listen carefully, but they began to be hardened. See, that's the natural man. He doesn't understand the first mechanics of grace. He doesn't understand how God has to kill this man and then raise him to a new life. He's in the throes of the death agony of conviction here. They also thought to drive away his distemper by harsh and surly carriage, that is, harsh treatment of him. So this is carnal physic or carnal medicine for a sick soul. That's what the margin says. Boy, there's tremendous perception here. Sometimes they would deride him, sometimes they'd chide him, sometimes they'd just neglect him. Wherefore he began to retire himself to his chamber, to pray for and pity them, and also to condole his own misery. He would also walk, now listen very carefully, don't miss anything here. See, everything here is allegorically precise. What he's saying here is, when a man is really convicted, it's not just a matter of the church sanctuary. See, some people go to church and get sermon sick. They're only convicted when they're in church. But what he's saying here is that when God convicts you, it lasts outside of church. It lasts all the time. You cannot get rid of it. He would also walk solitarily in the fields, sometimes reading, sometimes praying, and thus for some days he spent his time. Now I love this next sentence. Now I saw, get this phrase, this is just like the fullness of time in which Christ had come, but this is the fullness of time for an individual human soul. At a certain time, upon a time, when he was walking in the fields, that he was, as he was wont, reading in his book, and greatly distressed in his mind. And as he read, he burst out, as he had done before, crying, "What shall I do to be saved?" I saw also that he looked this way and that way as if he would run. Now God's got him at the end of his rope. He's in panic now. See, God's got him where he has to be for him to pull the rope. He's in a state of panic. panic. There's no hope for me. Where do I go? What do I do? But he couldn't go anywhere. So he wants to run, but he stands still because, as I perceived, he couldn't tell which way to go. So he had no instructions. Aha, now God's got him to the point where he can bring the right person. Now, mark this down. There are invariably two agents in genuine salvation. Two agents in genuine salvation. There's the Word of God, and there's the worker of God. In other words, some human agent will invariably show up telling this man the gospel, the good news. And this man is called evangelist. The word evangelist means good newser. Angel is the word for news or message. EV or EU is the word for good. So this is a good newser, a bearer of good news shows up. Wow. So it says he stood still because, as I perceived, he could not tell which way to go. I looked then and saw a man named Evangelist coming to me, and he asked, "Wherefore dost thou cry?" In other words, he's not going to put words in his mouth. See, here's another problem today. We put words in sinners' mouths. Glibly let them echo our words when they don't mean anything to their deepest spirit. No, you let that man go to the end of his rope with God. "Wherefore dost thou cry?" He answered, "Sir, I perceive by the book in my hand that I am condemned to die, and after that to come to judgment." That's Hebrews 9:27. "And I find that I'm not willing to do the first. I'm not willing to die. I'm afraid of what I would face. And I'm not able to do the second. I cannot face the possibility of judgment. But I'm hooked. I'm caught. What do I do?" Then said Evangelist, "Why are you not willing to die, since this life is attended with so many evils?" Death is a way out of a bad life, he says. So he's testing this man. The man answered, "Because I fear that this burden that is upon my back will sink me lower than the grave, and I shall fall into Tophet." Put in your notes, Isaiah 30, verse 33. Tophet is one of the Old Testament names for hell. And there's a whole education in that word.
Isaiah what?
30, verse 33. Tophet is the place outside of Jerusalem where some of the nation's most wicked kings practiced idolatrous worship. Now, what in the world's that got to do with hell? What does that tell us? Be ready for this. Be careful with this. See, we have not studied this like we think we've studied it. It means that when a person goes to hell, the drive to sin does not stop. In other words, he does not cease being a sinner in hell. The book clearly says, "He who is unholy, let him be unholy still." See, that's what makes hell just forever, because there's nothing to stop the growth of sin, and the punishment attends the sin, and wherever the sin occurs, the punishment is, and it occurs at every now moment, which is an eternal succession, so it lasts forever. Big stuff. And that's in that word Tophet. That tells you that, see, that's the place where only sinning occurred. Not the place where the suffering for sin occurred. It's a place where sinning occurred. And he says, "And I shall fall into Tophet. And sir, if I be not fit to go to prison, I'm certainly not fit to go to judgment, and then from there to execution. And the thoughts of these things make me cry." Now, a last application, and we'll stop tonight. Who does evangelist, in Bunyan's experience, who does he represent? Boy, this is great. He was doing tinker work in Bedford one day, and he paused outside of a deep inset entrance into a building, and there were three women there talking, and he stood at the edge of the wall and listened to their conversation. It was about God. And they talked about a new birth, and about having their sins forgiven and being pardoned. And he was so baffled by that and so disturbed by that, he stepped around the corner and rebuked them. Rebuked them. What did they do? Now listen to this. He said, "We've got a man you need to meet." And they took him to meet evangelist. His name was John Gifford. He called him Holy Master Gifford. He was the pastor of the Baptist Church in Bedford. And he took him into his home and began to counsel him with the ideas of the gospel. And this man evangelist represents Holy Master Gifford. He appears 3 times in the book, and he's constantly simply sharing the gospel. Well, what we won't know without researching, John Gifford had exactly the same kind of conversion that John Calvin had, that John Bunyan had. He was the man with the burden on his back. He was the man in deep conviction. He was the man who didn't believe there was any way to be saved. Now listen to this. He was a major on the side of the royalists who opposed the Puritans when the Puritans won the battle and gained freedom of religion for a short time in England. He was a major on the opposing side, and when they captured him, he was condemned to hang the next day. John Gifford. And the royalist army was so worn out, they were drinking, that Gifford's sister came down begging to see him in the jail cell before his hanging the next day. And they let him in, they let her in, and while they went to sleep in a drunken stupor, she sneaked him out of the jail cell. He escaped. He stayed for days in ditches, a network of ditches outside of Elstow. And then he gained access to the home of friends who sheltered him. He went to Bedford, and he became a doctor. He had studied medicine before he went into that army, became a doctor in Bedford, and he was a renegade sinner, a hellion. And one day somebody put a portion of the New Testament into his hand and told him just a brief testimony about Jesus, and it tore him absolutely to pieces. And he was saved, same kind of salvation experience Bunyan had. So when Bunyan was brought to him by these women, he understood exactly what was happening to him. So he gave him counsel about his conviction, about what happens when conversion comes, about how to know Christ. And he was further being set up for his conversion. He's going to picture the conversion in just a little while. But that's what this book is about. It's a masterpiece. And we've only started. You can see it's a whole lot bigger book than we've touched tonight. We've only started. So bring it with you and keep it handy. We won't use it by any means every time. We probably will use it next week. So we'll get into the story of Obstinate and Pliable. Now, if you want to read ahead, go ahead. But I would even suggest you just stay back there and read with us as we read along. Well, you hadn't seen anything if you only saw the movie. Because there's no way you can pick up all that in the movie.
Well, it's interesting, when he starts off, he doesn't know what to do, then the second page, he knows what to do, knows what it needs, but doesn't know how to get it.
Yeah. Very good. Now, listen carefully. One last idea. This book opens in a wilderness and closes with the crossing of a river. So tell me where you got the idea.
It has to be the Jordan River.
The wilderness is the wilderness where they wandered for
40 years.
So it opens in a wilderness and closes at the crossing of a river. Oh, it's a River Jordan.
River Jordan.
Yeah. The crossing the Red Sea got them into the wilderness out of Egypt. And then the crossing of Jordan finally, 40 years later, got them out. But you see how biblical all of this is. Well, I mean, it's just the Bible translated to allegorical form.
Herb, answer me a question. Do you think that somebody could be saved and feel that they're experience or relationship with Jesus is private to them.
I think I could feel that way, but they won't keep it long. You asked me what I think. My answer is no.
Okay.
No, it's not possible. This is the natural man's desire to keep religion private. And it's exactly that, it's religion. And it's amazing how many Baptists only have a religion.
You know, that very thing, Charleston Heston is on the TV channels reading the Bible. A reporter says, ask him about his belief, and he says, that's personal. And I said, the man's lost.
Yeah, probably.
See, the Presbyterian grew up that way, because I was raised in a Presbyterian church.
Now theirs is a different reason.
And
Theirs
I'm
is
scared
because of
for
heavy
my-
Calvinism.
Now, just to be honest, I'm scared for my dad, because when I went into seminary, you know, the first thing that seminary teaches, of course, is let's get out and witness. So we start, you know, I went to my mother. My mother kind of grew up in a Baptist church when she was young. She gave me exactly what I wanted to hear, you know, that she trusted in Jesus, and asked her. But when I went to Dad privately, just between him, it was his business. And that bothers me. That bothered me right then. And as I explained it to him, he said, oh, well, since you mean it that way. Because what I said to him, I said, no, Dad, it's my business. Two, because I want to know that when we go to heaven, that I'm going to see you there. And when I said that, then he said, oh, well, since you say it that way. And then he gave me, he never really gave me the answer. I can't remember because it was 7 years ago when I got to that point with him.
No, a Christian.
But that bothers me.
A Christian is a person in whom the center of gravity has shifted from himself to Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
If Jesus never comes out of him, the center hasn't shifted.
Yeah.
It has not shifted because only self is still coming out of him.
Mm-hmm.
Let's together.